I never imagined my simple act of kindness would lead to love with a millionaire. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick, filled with unease, as I stood on that crowded street corner. My heart raced. It was just afternoon, and the sun bore down like a spotlight, exposing all my fears. The noise was deafening. Cars honked, people shouted, and the whir of the city buzzed around me. Yet, in that chaos, I saw him. His name was Julian. He stood off to the side, drenched in a coat of expensive fabric that seemed entirely out of place in that bustling neighborhood. There was something in his eyes, a deep sorrow that transcended the glitz of his lifestyle. I couldn't ignore it. That's when I approached him, my hands trembling at my sides. "Are you okay?" I whispered, my voice drowned in the cacophony around us. He turned to me, and for a split second, the world stopped. His gaze pierced through my uncertainty, revealing a sadness that echoed my own. "I'm just lost," he replied, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I could see it in the way his lips quivered, the tightness in his jaw. It wasn't just the city that was suffocating him. It felt like his very existence was wrapped in despair that I didn't know why, but I reached out and took his hand. It was warm yet trembling. In that moment, it felt as if the universe had conspired to bring us together. I offered him a smile, one that I hoped would bridge the chasm between us. In an instant, Julian's expression shifted. The corners of his mouth twitched, breaking the stoic mask he wore. But the city was unforgiving. A massive truck rumbled past, drowning our moment in noise. I squeezed his hand tighter, as if to shield him from the harsh reality. "Let's get away from here," I said, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. What I didn't know, what I couldn't foresee, was that this act of kindness would spiral into something beyond my wildest imagination. As we walked, I tried to unravel the mystery behind his pain. "How did you end up here?" I asked tentatively, my breath hitching with anticipation. He hesitated, a shadow of doubt crossing his features. "That's a long story," he mumbled, and I felt an ache in my chest. What could be so heavy that it brought a millionaire like him to this gritty corner of the city? I could see secrets swirling in his eyes. But before I could pry further, he stopped suddenly, his gaze shifting towards a woman across the street, someone familiar, yet haunting. Her presence sparked something in him. Fear? Regret? And just like that, everything shifted again. His expression hardened, the warmth of our connection faltering. My heart sank. "Julian?" I called softly, but he was lost in the storm brewing within him. That was the moment I realized how intertwined our fates were, and yet how fragile they remained. In the midst of my blooming curiosity, a chilling question loomed: what secrets lay hidden in his world, and would I be swept away in its chaos? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the swirling emotions settled within me, I searched Julian's face for answers. The woman across the street had vanished into the crowd, but the storm in his eyes remained. I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind as he wrestled with whatever memories she had ignited. "Julian," I said again, my voice firmer this time. "What's going on?" He shook his head, a tempest of confusion battling against the calm facade he desperately tried to maintain. "It's nothing," he replied, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Let's just keep walking." I hesitated, torn between the desire to press him for answers and the fear of shattering the fragile bond we had begun to forge. Our connection felt like a flickering candle in a dark room, so easily extinguished if not handled with care. Ruled by instinct, I shrugged off the doubt and walked alongside him, hoping to soothe the turmoil beneath his surface. Yet, each step in silence felt more oppressive than the last. My heart longed to reach out, to understand, but I feared pushing him further into the shadows. Just then, a small child ran past us, giggling and chasing a butterfly that danced on the breeze. A burst of joy spread across my face, and I caught Julian glancing down, his brow slightly furrowed. "Oh, you remember childhood?" I asked, trying to draw him back from that dark place. How we used to find happiness in the simplest things, he sighed softly, a hint of longing escaping his lips. Sometimes I wish I could go back before everything got so complicated, he murmured, his vulnerability sparking something deep within me. Complications can blind us, I replied, my voice steady. But sometimes they can also lead us to unexpected places. Like right now, with each other. Julian shifted his gaze back to me. For a fleeting moment, I saw that glimmer of hope in his eyes again, battling against the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. I don't know, he started, the conflict in him evident, when suddenly his phone buzzed and a frown overtook his features as he pulled his phone from his pocket, glancing at the screen. I have to take this, he said, stepping away. The distance between us felt unbearably wide, and unease crawled up my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever news awaited him could tip the scales of our fragile respite. That I watched him as he turned his back to me, his brow furrowed deeper with each second on the call. Within moments, the confident visage of the millionaire blurred into someone else entirely, someone burdened, trapped in a storm of responsibilities he hadn't signed up for. Then, as abruptly as the call began, he hung up. Julian shoved the phone back into his pocket. Tension gripped his jaw, and when he faced me his eyes were filled with an intensity one hadn't seen before. I have to go. Something urgent came up, he stammered, his voice a mere whisper against the pulsating city backdrop. That my heart sank as he took a step back. Wait, can't we talk? I pleaded, desperate to keep the connection alive. He hesitated, the turmoil evident as he fought against the impulse to turn away. I'll be back, he finally said, his eyes searching mine for something understanding, perhaps. Please, don't give up on me. Never, I vowed, my voice fierce with commitment even as uncertainty twisted in my gut. With that, he disappeared into the throngs of people, and I was left standing there, a pit forming in my stomach. Hope flickered as quickly as it had flared. The brief connection we shared now felt like a dream slowly disintegrating before my eyes. Just as I pulled myself together, ready to confront the unresolved emotions swirling in my heart, I noticed a figure approaching, a frail, old woman with eyes that sparkled with kindness. She stopped just in front of me, her weathered hands extended, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers. For you, dear, she smiled, as if sensing the heaviness weighing on me. These flowers remind us that beauty can emerge from even the most chaotic lives. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from down the street, sending a ripple of panic through the crowd. Instinctively, I turned towards the noise, but just as swiftly, the elderly woman grasped my hand and squeezed it gently. Remember, dear, you are never truly alone. Her words hung in the air, resonating with a warmth that felt like a lifeline. But before I could reply, a sudden realization hit me like ice water. Julian's promise echoed in my mind, but a wave of dread crashed over me. What could happen in the time it took for him to return? As I looked back down the street where he had vanished, I finally understood that our bond was anchored in uncertainty. Love was never simplistic, and the chaos surrounding us was far from over. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message that shattered the fragile peace within me. It was from Julian. The content flickered on the screen, a breathtaking revelation that turned my world upside down. I stared, breath caught in my throat, as my heart twisted in a contradictory dance of hope and fear. I felt each beat of my heart grow heavy as I stared at my phone. The message flashed like a warning sign. I need to tell you something. It's important. Meet me at the cafe. My breath hitched in my throat, both curiosity and fear colliding within me. What could possibly be so urgent that he couldn't share it over the phone? The elderly woman watched me, her wise eyes sparkling with unspoken understanding. You've received news, haven't you? She asked softly. Something like that, I replied, forcing a tentative smile while my mind raced with possibilities. Go, she urged gently, her hands moving to cup my face momentarily. Whatever it is, it's part of your journey. And remember, there's courage in vulnerability. Nodding, I thanked her and turned, determination edging out my apprehension as I rushed towards the cafe. It was the same place where Julian and I had first met, filled with warm lights and soft laughter. But now it seemed like an arena before a match, the air thick with tension as I pushed through the glass door, The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet aroma of pastries, but my senses were ablaze with anticipation. At a corner table, Julian sat, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that screamed agitation. His gaze snapped to me the moment I entered, and the moment our eyes locked, I felt the weight of his urgency pressing down on me. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice strained as he gestured for me to sit. I didn't know how to say this. I couldn't help but swallow back the rising tide of nerves. "Just tell me," I urged. He took a deep breath, his expressive eyes narrowing as if he were seeking the right words. "I've been avoiding something, and it's long overdue." Just then, the cafe door swung open, and my attention was diverted momentarily. A man with a polished suit entered, his presence immediately eclipsing the cozy ambience. I recognized him instantly as Mark, the business rival everyone warned Julian about. My heart sank. What could he possibly want here? "It seems I've stumbled into a private meeting," Mark announced, a sly smirk on his lips, oozing arrogance. "But no worries, I'm just interested in the latest gossip." Julian's face hardened, and my instincts flared. The spark of tension escalated, an undercurrent of existing animosity crackling in the air. "This isn't the place for your games, Mark," Julian replied evenly, but I sensed the strain beneath his composed exterior. "But I beg to differ," Mark retorted, his eyes wandering between us like a predator sizing up its prey. "Wouldn't it be fun to unravel a few secrets? You two seem quite cozy." My stomach twisted in knots. A part of me wanted to scream, to push back against his jeering presence. I shot a glance at Julian, searching for reassurance, but his expression remained taut, caught in a battle between maintaining decorum and the swirling emotions that threatened to spill. Before I could form the words, Julian stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor, a thunderous sound echoing through the cafe. "Enough. You need to leave," he spat, anger boiling beneath his calm facade. Mark chuckled, his grin widening as he leaned casually against a nearby table. "This is delightful. You think chasing me off will erase your past?" Julian's fists clenched at his sides, the raw power of his emotions tangible. "I'm not afraid of my past, Mark," he said, his voice unwavering despite the storm roiling within. "But I will protect what's important to me now." I could feel the temperature in the room shifting, weighing heavy with uncertainty. The quiet cafe, filled with hushed whispers and the clinking of cups, suddenly felt like a theater spotlighting two actors embroiled in a play filled with tension and unresolved conflicts. As Mark's gaze landed on me, an unsettling realization washed over me. Whatever Julian wanted to share about his past was entangled with the enigmatic figure standing across from us. I understood now that this meeting wasn't simply about Use. It was about Julian's history, his hidden burdens, the dark shadows that shaped his present. "I have to go," I said, my voice suddenly small. I was grappling with the vortex of secrets that surrounded Julian, feeling the need for space amidst the charged atmosphere. "He'll wait for you outside." As I turned to leave, I caught Julian's eye. He looked torn, his vulnerability laid bare before this unexpected confrontation. But before I could reach the door, an unexpected hand grabbed mine. "Mark's. Leave him, sweetheart. He's drowning in a past you can't even begin to imagine," he said smoothly, a dangerous glint in his eyes that I wrenched my hand away instinctively, anger flaring within me. "Stay away from me," I shot back, feeling the weight of the moment crash down like sudden rain. The tension was palpable as I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face like a welcome balm. But I felt anything but calm. Julian's pain, Mark's dark influence, everything swirled dangerously in my mind. Just when I thought I could find clarity, my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, reading a chilling message that sent a cold wave through my entire being. It was from an unknown number. "Leave Julian before it's too late." My heart raced, chaos echoing in my mind as I stood on the threshold of hope and despair. The path ahead was murky, filled with dark shadows that promised pain. I was left grappling with the suffocating fear that I had unearthed a dangerous truth, and there was no turning back now. I stood on the sidewalk, the chill of the breeze wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The air felt electric, charged with the remnants of that tense exchange inside the cafe. I leaned against the cool glass of the window, heart hammering in my chest, replaying the scene over and over. Each fragment of conversation felt like a thread unraveling, Julian was tangled in a web of past relationships and rivalries, and here I was, caught in a whirlwind I could barely comprehend. Then, the chilling message from the unknown number pierced through my racing thoughts. I scanned the street, half hoping to catch a glimpse of someone lurking, someone with answers. But all I saw was the gentle rustle of leaves as the wind picked up, a reminder that nature continued its course, indifferent to the turmoil brewing within me. That a part of me longed to run, to flee from the storm that was Julian's life. Yet, the other part, a deeper, more stubborn part, felt an unyielding urge to stay and fight through it all. Just as I was about to move away from the cafe, a soft voice broke through the chaos. "Are you all right?" It was the elderly woman from inside, her face illuminated by the cafe lights. She had followed me outside, a warm glow emanating from her, as if she carried the very essence of hope. That I blinked back unexpected tears and nodded, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Just processing everything. She stepped closer, her wisdom evident in her gaze. "Sometimes, clarity comes amidst the storm. Don't be afraid to seek it, dear. The heart knows when to fight and when to let go." I swallowed hard, realizing she might be a wellspring of understanding, able to see beyond mere words. But what if fighting means stepping into darkness? What if I'm only bringing more chaos into his life? The woman smiled gently, her hand brushing my arm. "You're not a chaos bringer, you're a beacon of kindness. That alone can pierce the darkest night." Before I could reply, the cafe door swung open, and Julian stepped out. The tension on his face had shifted, the anger dissipating into a deep uncertainty. When his gaze found mine, it felt like a fragile tether, pulling me back to him amidst the swirling confusion. "Where were you?" he asked, concern etched into the lines of his brow. I hesitated, still grappling with the heavy atmosphere of what had just happened. "I needed air. Your former business partner didn't make things easy. I am sorry you had to deal with Mark. He enjoys creating chaos, but I didn't want you to be swept up in it." His words were heavy with unspoken burdens, and I couldn't help but feel an intense wave of empathy crash over me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, as vulnerability seeped into the air between us. Before he could respond, I caught sight of Mark re-entering the cafe, a satisfied smirk plastered on his face as he caught Julian's eye. The low murmurs of conversations deep inside felt like a moth drawn to flame. Mark was both a threat and a source of all Julian's entanglements. My heart raced as a realization dawned. This was no ordinary rivalry. "Listen, we can't stay out here. I need to explain," Julian urged, his voice gaining intensity. "I've kept too much from you, and it's time I faced it. Can it wait?" I replied, glancing towards Mark, who seemed to be enjoying an unsettling cup of coffee, relishing in our tension. "I think we should maybe leave." Julian took a step closer, a pleading light in his eyes. "No, I need you to hear this. There are things even Mark doesn't know, shadowy parts of my past that keep pulling at me. I thought escaping would make it go away." "What do you mean?" My breath hitched in my throat, the weight of his honesty overwhelming. But before he could answer, a loud crash shattered the moment, drawing both our attention. A nearby car had spun out of control, plowing into a lamppost and shattering the calm of the evening. People screamed, running towards the wreckage, their lives suddenly spiraled into chaos. I felt Julian's grip on my hand tighten, anchoring me amidst unfolding pandemonium. "I think we need to help," he urged, his eyes fierce with urgency. Fear and adrenaline surged through me as we made our way toward the accident. The shock of reality pierced through all the emotional turmoil I had felt just moments before. Suddenly, the stakes were rising far beyond my own heartaches. Lives were at risk, and I felt a primal instinct to protect. As we got closer, I heard someone crying out, desperately calling for help. We rushed to assist, and as we got nearer, Julian's expression shifted into one I had never seen before, a mixture of fear not just for the casualties, but perhaps for something deeper within him. It was in that brief moment, as we instinctively reached out to comfort the injured, that I realized the connection between us had deepened irrevocably. There were shadows in Julian's past that roamed freely now, and somehow, I had stepped right into the line of fire. Just as my hands pulled away from the chaos, a gasp escaped my lips as I felt the buzz of my phone once again. My heart dropped when I saw the new message. "Things will only get worse from here. Trust no one. In that moment, standing alongside him amidst the wreckage, I could feel the weight of the future pressing down on Yuson, filled with uncertainty, hidden truths, and a path I now realized was fraught with danger. As the first responders arrived, blocking my view, I turned to Julian. Just as he said, "We need to figure this all out together." But before I could respond, I saw Mark on the outskirts of the commotion, a shadow lurking in the night, watching us with a calculating gaze. The air turned thick with foreboding, and something told me, deep in my gut, that the real storm was only just beginning. The sirens wailed, slicing through the chaotic scene, but for a moment, the world quieted around me, the rush of noise fading into an unsettling thrum. I looked into Julian's eyes, searching for some sign of clarity amidst the confusion that shrouded us. His gaze was filled with worry, not just for the injured, but for some unseen battle raging on inside. "Stay close," he urged, and I nodded, taking a step towards him, grounding myself in his presence as the first responders swarmed the site. An array of emotions clawed at my heart: fear for the people hurt, anxiety about Mark's watchful eyes, and the nagging sensation that Julian's world was about to collapse in on itself like a house of cards. That I noticed a young woman, perhaps in her 20s, crumpled beside the car. She was cradling a small infant, both of them shaken but miraculously unharmed. The baby cooed softly as if trying to soothe the chaos around her. Without thinking, I rushed to her side, kneeling down to offer support. "You're going to be okay," I reassured, placing a gentle hand on the woman's shoulder. The warmth of my touch seemed to break through the ice around her fear. "Two thought we would." Her words broke off in a choked whisper, eyes glistening with tears. "Breathe, just breathe. You're safe now," I encouraged, feeling a flicker of hope igniting. In that small moment, despite the wreckage of metal and shattered glass surrounding us, I realized that my simple act of kindness could create ripples of comfort, if only for a moment. As emergency personnel took over, Julian's unmistakable presence lingered at the fringes. I paused to glance back at him, only to find that he was deep in conversation with an officer, his demeanor shifting to one of authority, the protective aspect of his character emerging. I wanted to reach out to him, to share in the moment, but something in his posture felt withdrawn, as if he was preparing for a fight I didn't yet understand. Once the woman and baby were being assisted by paramedics, I stepped away, returning to Julian's side, wanting to pull him back from whatever emotional brink he was teetering on. "Are you okay?" I asked, scanning his features, which now wore the weight of the night. "Yeah, just," he hesitated, lips pressed tightly together. "There's something about this. It feels too familiar." "What do you mean?" My heart raced at his shadowed expression. The sudden vulnerability made my own fears seem paltry. Before he could answer, a sudden commotion to our left drew our attention. A bystander was shouting as they pointed toward a figure exiting a nearby building. A tall man, sharply dressed, carrying a sense of urgency that sent a chill spiraling down my spine. "Mr. Winters," the man called out, and the air around us thickened with tension. Julian's face paled. "That's Jonathan. He shouldn't be here." "Who is he?" I breathed, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The crowd's energy shifted, whispers swirling as people turned to watch the unfolding scene. "That a part of my past I hope to leave behind," Julian replied, voice low. "He knows things that my heart sank as I processed his words. I realized this was yet another layer to the complexity surrounding Julian's life. I reached out, grasping his forearm, grounding myself amid the disarray. "What kind of things?" "Things that could threaten what we're trying to build," he replied, teeth gritted, eyes still focused on Jonathan, who now advanced towards us, flanked by two imposing security personnel. The urgency of the situation escalated once more, and adrenaline mixed with confusion as I stepped closer to Julian. "We need to get his." "Isn't the time to." As Jonathan approached, his eyes narrowed, and an unsettling smile graced his face. "So we meet again, Julian. It seems like your little sanctuary here is about to crumble, doesn't it?" Julian's body hardened, and I felt his tension reverberate through the space between us as Jonathan's dark intent hung like a storm cloud. Without thinking, I stepped in front of Julian, instinctively placing myself between him and the threat. "We don't have to do this," I said, my voice steady though. Dread gnawed at my insides. "Ah, the lovely beacon of kindness," Jonathan purred mockingly. You really think you can protect him? It's sweet, but the past has a way of sneaking back into the light. Julian's hand tightened around my wrist, his strength both reassuring and terrifying. Get away from her, Jonathan, he warned, his voice a low growl. Or what? You'll reveal your secrets? I think everyone here is already piecing them together, including this one. Jonathan motioned toward me, a slithering malice creeping into his tone. What's interesting is that I can make things worse, and I intend to. Suddenly, the reality of his words crashed upon me like a tidal wave. I turned to Julian, searching for answers as panic fluttered in my chest. What do you mean? But just as he opened his mouth to respond, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I whipped it out, mind racing, only to find another message. You've drawn the line, and the shadows will come for you both. There's no escaping this now. The air turned frigid, the world spiraling into a blurred cacophony of threats swirling around us. I steadied myself, mind reeling, torn between the danger surrounding us and the horrifying weight of Julian's past that hung heavy in the air. This twisted game of fate wouldn't end here, not with those lurking shadows and the looming presence of Jonathan. With Jonathan's gaze locked onto us, I could feel the impending storm of chaos in the depths of his smirk. It was as if the world had narrowed down to one dark, unfolding truth. We were standing on the edge of a precipice, and the fall wouldn't just affect Julian, it would swallow us both whole. The air hung heavy with Jonathan's threats, the sound of sirens fading into a tense silence that cocooned us. My grip on Julian's arm tightened, the warmth of his skin grounding me as panic threatened to take hold. We need to go, I insisted again, but the weight of Jonathan's presence felt like a noose tightening around us. Not yet, Julian murmured through clenched teeth, eyes still fixed on Jonathan. I could feel the embers of his determination simmering just beneath the surface, but what would it take for him to ignite? Leaving now would be a good idea, Jonathan replied, a mocking lilt coloring his words. You think you have the luxury of choice? Your past doesn't just sit quietly, Julian. It's here, it's breathing, and it carries all the weight of who you've tried to forget. With each word, I felt Julian's resolve waning, an invisible thread threatening to snap. You're wrong, Julian spat, anger flaring like a candle. You were a chapter one thought had ended. Every chapter ripples into the next, my friend. Jonathan's smile widened as he took a step closer, the humor twisted, sinister. And you've left us with plenty to discuss, haven't you? Enough. I interjected, pushing my way between them, heart racing with a mix of bravado and fear. The warmth of Julian's arm was a beacon, but I could feel the chill of Jonathan's scrutiny, dissecting our every move. That loyalty I see. Jonathan chuckled, glancing between us. How quaint. But in this world, loyalty can be a dangerous game to play. You, my dear, might become the very leverage that turns the tide. Stop, Julian demanded, stepping forward again, his voice firm, but I could sense the tremor beneath. What do you want, Jonathan? Want? Jonathan feigned surprise. I want nothing more than a little entertainment, a reminder that life is rarely what it seems. He turned to me, eyes gleaming with malicious intrigue. But you, sweetheart, could be the catalyst for a most entertaining showdown. I see Julian cares for you. That could be useful. You think this is some twisted game? I shot back, my fear morphing into a fierce resolve. You're wrong. We're not mere pawns in your delusions, though. But you are, he said, his tone turning icy, the charm slipping. You haven't even begun to grasp the implications of your involvement. You're already in deeper than you realize, and the shadows will come for you both. They'll be watching. For a moment, a heavy silence settled, and reality slithered into focus. This was not just about Julian's past. It was about my future, my life, and how it seemed to entwine with the chaos that shadowed him. The thought was suffocating, a chilling reminder that kindness could sometimes be met with insidious darkness. Let's go, Julian finally said, his voice low and resolute, tearing away from the standoff. He grabbed my hand, and we turned toward the chaos swirling around. As we moved, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jonathan's eyes were boring into my back, promising that this wasn't over. We navigated through the throngs of onlookers, their faces a blur, but a familiar voice pierced through the haze. Jules. It was Emma, rushing toward us, her face a mix of concern and confusion. Get back, Julian shouted, pulling me close. But Emma's brows furrowed deeper. What happened? She asked breathlessly, surveying the chaos. Then her gaze landed on me, widening. Is that? Not now, Emma, Julian urged tersely, but I could see the wheels turning in her mind. It was as if she sensed the weight of secrets unheard. As we reached the edge of the crowd, Julian's grip on my hand tightened even further, a silent promise of solidity amid the storm. Yet, as we glanced back, Jonathan stood at the center, a lone figure against the tumult. His presence seemed to loom larger with every passing moment. Where to? I asked, fear threading through me as we stepped onto the sidewalk. I took a shaky breath, trying to anchor myself in the reality that was shifting beneath our feet. We're not safe, he replied, urgency tinging his voice, and a new layer of panic unfurled within me. But I need to explain everything. There are things I didn't tell you. And Jonathan, he hesitated, biting his lip, and a shadow of despair crept into his expression. What about him? I pressed, my heart racing as alarm bells echoed in my mind that he knows things that could destroy Mayus. His voice cracked, and I caught a glimpse of the haunting vulnerability beneath his determined facade. If he wants to drag me back into that world, he'll do it through you. And then, just as the last vestiges of clarity crumbled away, my phone buzzed again, a different number this time. A knot twisted in my stomach as I glanced at the screen. The message read, "You can't hide from what's coming. The shadows are closer than you think. Be careful." Before I could even process the weight of the warning, an ominous figure emerged from the crowd, one I hadn't seen before but felt immediately uneasy about. They were closing in, an unseen threat, a promise of chaos ready to bear down on us. "Julian," I whispered, the reality crashing over me once more. This didn't feel like a simple moment of danger anymore. It felt like the flooding tide of a nightmare, where hope and fear were entwined and no one could predict the outcome. As we turned instinctively to run, I realized that this was not just about survival. It was about facing everything that loomed ahead together, or else be torn apart by the shadows moving ever closer. And in that haunting moment, I understand that the foundations we had begun to build could very well be tested in ways we had never anticipated. The night felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty, the streetlights flickering like anxious fireflies as fear laced my every breath. Julian and I darted into the maze of streets, the rhythmic pounding of our footsteps echoing the rising thunderstorm of our hearts. My mind raced, drawing connections I hadn't wanted to face. Jonathan's premonitions, the strangeness of the warnings, the lingering shadows that threatened to unravel us. "Where are we going?" I gasped, desperation lacing my voice as we took a sharp turn into an alleyway, the world around us dark and claustrophobic. My heart pounded not just from the sprint, but from the gnawing uncertainty of what revelations Julian would unravel. "Somewhere safe," he panted, glancing over his shoulder, as if shadows themselves might leap out to ensnare us. "Emma will be looking for us. She can help, she just needs to understand." "Understand what?" I asked breathlessly, my fear morphing into defiance. "What's there to understand that she hasn't already seen tonight?" He stopped abruptly, turning to face me, his expression a tempest of emotions. "I didn't tell you everything about my past, about Jonathan, and there are layers you need to know if you're going to protect yourself." A dull ache settled in my chest. "Protect myself? Julian, what does that even mean? I thought we were in this together." His visage softened, but the weight of his burdens etched deep lines into his forehead. "We are, but my past is like a shackle. Jonathan isn't just some old acquaintance. He's a ghost that lurks in my wake." As the rain began to patter against the pavement, I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling utterly exposed. "You're not making any sense. If he's as dangerous as you say, then why did I have to get involved?" "Because," he said, urgency sharpening his tone, "Jonathan views you, not just as someone I care about, but as leverage. My past mistakes cradle a darkness that puts you in his sights. I should have pushed you away after the first date. I should have protected you from this. But you didn't, and it feels like we're both spiraling down this rabbit hole together," I said, frustration boiling over. "You don't get to wave the flag of martyrdom for both of us." He dropped his gaze, the flickering neon lights casting a muted glare against his face, revealing the anguish twisting in his eyes. "I know," he whispered, voice breaking slightly. But if I could take it all back, if I could have prevented you from entangling yourself in my chaos, I would. A brief silence filled the space between us, both caught in a moment of stark clarity before the shadows threatened to close in. My instincts surged, refusing to dwell on fear, but wrestling with the ominous weight of his words. I'm here now, Julian. Whatever is coming, I wave to face this together. No more running. That's what I want. His gaze met mine, incandescent through the murk of despair. But what if facing it means losing you? Something deep within me trembled at the thought as I took a step closer, defiance surging within me. Then we fight. We tell each other everything and find a way out of this madness. Just then, a flash of light caught my attention, flickering in the distance. My pulse quickened as I instinctively turned towards it, and my heart sank as I realized that it wasn't just the storm playing tricks with my mind. Julian, I stammered, catching sight of more figures silhouetted at the far end of the alley. They were not alone. Go, he shouted just as the figures emerged, shadows spilling toward us, faces twisting into menacing grins. We scrambled to sprint away, but I felt a tug, haunting and familiar, holding onto the frayed edges of our moment as we careened into chaos. I in the scramble, my phone buzzed again desperately. I fished it from my pocket, nearly dropping it as the screaming sound of sirens filled the air. The new message glowed ominously. We're closer than you think. Do not trust anyone. Time froze. Julian's hand tightened around mine. This wasn't just lurking shadows. It was a full-on storm bearing down. What do we do? I yelled over the escalating cacophony. Stay close, he replied, a steely resolve settling onto his features. And we find Emma. She's in this too. Maybe she can help you. Sass. His words hung in the air. A figure collided with us, its presence looming large, and the moment shattered into chaos. My heart raced, breaking beneath the weight of uncertainty. Before I could react, a familiar voice echoed with urgency and despair. Julian. And in that heart-stopping moment, alongside Emma's anguished expression, the veil of clarity slipped, revealing that every sacred thread we wove was now unraveling in ways I never imagined possible. Nothing was as it seemed, and the very foundation of our fight lay upon the cusp of heartbreak, setting the stage for unknown sacrifices on the horizon. The world around us blurred as I grappled with the unfolding chaos. Emma's anguished shout cut through the thunderous din, but I felt trapped in that single heartbeat, processing the sight of her vulnerability painted across her features. She had been my confidant, a glimmer of safety in this tumultuous storm. Yet now, her very presence felt like an unsteady thread weaving us deeper into a perilous web. Emma, you shouldn't be here. Julian's voice cracked as he stepped protectively in front of me, shielding me from the unknown threat that surrounded us. My instincts screamed for clarity. There was no time to unravel the intricacies of our situation, no space to dissect the rising panic gnawing at the edges of my heart. Get back, Emma yelled, her eyes darting nervously as she clutched a small backpack to her chest. The wild winds began to whip around us, as if the universe itself decided to join the chaos. I followed the signal. I didn't mean to signal, I echoed, confusion tightening my throat. A flicker of hope pulsed within me, breaking through the dark haze that suffocated my reasoning. My mind raced back to Jonathan's warnings, the hidden messages lurking in our conversations. You could track us? Yes, but they're close. They know I'm here. She stammered, her breath coming out in ragged gasps. We need to move. Now. The figures surrounding us began to advance, their silhouettes slicing through the veil of night with ominous intent. The flickering lights danced around them, revealing narrow eyes glinting with malice. My heart thundered, pooling fear into a torrent that threatened to drown me. Before I could react, Julian grabbed my hand tight, his grip an anchor amidst the chaos. Stay close, Alina. Emma, where can we go? The urgency in his voice struck a chord deep within me, a reminder that our lives hinged on the decisions of this moment. There's a safe house, Emma shouted, her eyes straying over the approaching silhouettes. ITLL by us time. Then lead the way, I urged, adrenaline surging through my veins. Yet as the three of us rushed down a narrow street, I felt a piercing sensation, as if the shadows themselves were reaching out to claim our fate. Suddenly, I heard Julian's voice cut through the clamorous whirlwind. Alina, I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. He pulled me back to my feet as we raced forward, the pounding of our hearts mingling with the frantic beat of our footsteps. What was it you wanted to tell me? I gasped, desperate to regain that anchor of connection, to distract from the encroaching darkness. His eyes searched mine, and there was a flickering ember of warmth amidst the terrifying uncertainty. When I talked about my past, it's complicated. I didn't just drag you into this. You inexplicably invited it in. What? I felt the weight of his words settle around us, as if the shadows absorbed my breath. What do you mean? Before he could respond, a shout echoed behind us. There they are. A chorus of voices rose, sinister laughter melding with the rising storm. Julian's grip on my hand tightened, until I could almost feel the heat pulsing through his skin, a promise of resilience amidst the tempest. We'll talk later, he urged, urgency lacing his every syllable. Right now, we run. But just as we turned the corner, Emma halted, positioning herself between us and the encroaching figures. Keep going, she urged, her voice a fierce cry that reverberated against the unforgiving reality. No, Emma, wait, I shouted, panic flaring within me. My heart threatened to splinter as I watched her resolve transform into determination. But there was a flicker of something more. Could it be bravery? The very essence of hope wavering in the darkest of moments? Just go, she yelled again, wielding a metal tube she had pulled from her backpack, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the fierce spirit within her. Julian pulled me back, his body tense and frantic. We can't leave her. She can handle herself, I replied, a desperate plea escaping my lips. But the decision felt cruel, a dagger twisted deeper with every beat of my heart. Without another word, Emma urged us on. Shadows closed in, pushing us forward as I dared not look back. I felt her sacrifice etch into my soul, leaving behind brushes of guilt and a flicker of brave admiration. As we rounded yet another corner, Julian's voice barely broke through the storm. Alina, please, I need you to trust me. Trust us. A sense of overwhelming helplessness settled upon me, thick as the rain now pouring around us. Trust? Trust cannot save us from the unknown, I cried, my heart straining under the burden of what we had left behind. Just hold on, Julian replied fiercely, and I could see the relentless fire burning in his eyes, not just the will to survive, but an unquenchable desire to fight for the truth waiting in the shadows. Yet, a new message buzzed in my pocket, cutting through our hurried escape like a jagged knife. The screen glowed, and I hesitated, sheer dread hitting me like a punch to the gut. Julian, not now, he yelled, pulling me toward a jutting alley, desperation building within him. But the words lingered on my lips as I read the chilling message. No one will save her. You've already lost your only ally. And in that breathless moment, I felt the fragility of hope crumbling beneath my feet as new fears festered, swirling in the storm. We hadn't just become entangled in the darkness. We had crossed a threshold. The past and future collided, and with one fateful decision, the boundaries of loyalty would soon be tested in ways we had yet to comprehend. The alley we ducked into felt suffocating, the air thick with uncertainty and dread. As Julian pressed us against the damp wall, I could barely catch my breath, the message still haunting me. Alina, stay quiet, he whispered, his voice laced with a tension that sent shivers through my spine. But the words from my pocket lingered, a shadow over our fragile escape. My heart raced, battling the urge to scream, to let the fear pour out of me. Instead, I clutched the device tightly, both terrified and desperate to decipher the implications. Who had sent the chilling message? Was Emma truly lost to us already? Julian's gaze darted around the alley, his eyes scanning every corner for threats. Beneath the fear, however, I caught a glimmer of determination in his expression that momentarily quelled the storm within me. I needed to remind myself of that glimmer, to focus on the here and now, but my mind wouldn't relinquish its hold on the pain of being forced to abandon my best friend. What do we do? I whispered, my voice barely carrying above the torrential rain pounding against the cobbled streets. We wait, Julian replied, urgency in his tone. He shifted closer, his warmth brushing against me like a protective barrier. If they're looking for us, we can't move just yet. We have to clear the area. My breath caught as I scanned the shadows creeping further into our alley. What about Emma? I breathed, the dread knotting tighter in my chest. We can't just leave her. I know, he said, his voice steady despite my rising panic. But if we leave now, we'll only endanger ourselves more. We need to survive, Alina. We need to regroup. Regroup. The word felt like a lifeline, but one that strained against the outpouring of guilt burrowing deeper in my chest. What if we couldn't regroup? What if Emma was captured, or worse? The uncertainty festered in my gut, but it also ignited the flicker of hope I had been struggling to hold on to. From somewhere out in the storm, the scrape of boots against wet pavement sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. They're coming, I gasped, my fingers trembling against the cold screen of my phone. They know we're here. Stay still, Julian commanded softly, positioning his body closer as if to shield me from the world outside. Trust me, trust. I desperately clung to that fragile thread. Julian's unwavering eyes met mine, and for a brief, flickering moment, the chaos melted away. In that connection, I felt a warmth invade the chill creeping into my bones. I didn't just want to trust him. I needed to. As the heavy footsteps grew louder, a cacophony of voices echoed, mingling with the relentless rain. They went this way? Find them. My heart sank further into the abyss. They've split us apart on purpose, I whispered, dread pooling inside. I can't lose her, Julian. I can't. But a flicker of compassion crossed his face, but then it hardened as he gripped my shoulder gently. We'll find her, Alina. I promise we will protect each other. That has to be our priority right now. I reluctantly nodded, swallowing hard to push back the tears that threatened to spill. But even as I fought for resolve, doubt clawed at the edges of my mind. What if finding Emma meant trading our own safety for hers? Then I heard Ida's single voice, sharp and commanding, cutting through the storm. This way. If we follow the tracker. Julian's eyes went wide, realization dawning as he turned to me, panic coursing through his veins. They're tracking your phone. Involuntarily, I glanced down at the screen, still illuminated with the harrowing message. What do we do? We need to get rid of it, I urged, shaking. He glanced around the alley desperately, eyes racing to find a solution. Here, take this, he said, rifling through his pack before handing me a small pocket knife. We can't risk them knowing we're close. I took the knife, feeling its cold weight in my palm, a stark reminder of the choices we faced. There was a terrified edge to our predicament that spun around within me. It was a knife's edge, one that could cut either way depending on the path we chose. But if I destroy it, there's no other choice. We can't let them take you, Julian replied urgently, his brow furrowed. They'll use you against us, against Emma. The thought sent a cold wave of shivers coursing through my body. What if it's too late? I choked out. What if we've already lost? Julian stepped closer, his voice a low whisper, so only I could hear him over the pounding rain. I won't let that happen. I care too much about you. In that instant, his words hung heavily in the air. A fire ignited within me, flickering through the gloom. I couldn't allow fear to swallow me whole. I had to fight, not just for Emma but for my own survival as well. Okay, I breathed, feeling some semblance of courage bloom within me. Let's do it. With shaky fingers, I steadied the knife against the edge of my phone. But just as I was about to make the cut, my heart froze. There was a surge of light, the screen flashing an incoming message. An urgent notification that drew my eyes and agitated my ever-growing dread. Alina, no. Don't. Julian's warning came too late. The message lit up my vision. Reading starkly, they tracked her. You need to make a choice. Save Emma or save yourself. My heart raced, the meaning of those words crashing over me like the storm. Emma's fate hung in the balance. In that instant, I felt gravity shift. My world splintered into shadows and light. How could I choose? I can't. I gasped, fingers trembling. The knife quivering at the threshold of decision. A chilling realization dawned. I had survived alongside darkness, danced with it. Yet never had I been faced with a choice that could tear apart our lives forever. I was left standing at a precipice between loyalty and love, vulnerability and survival, as the rain pounded relentlessly around us. Alina, Julian's voice cut through the haze, desperate but firm. Whatever happens, we'll find a way. But we have to decide now. In that moment, I felt the weight of his words, the urgency of our dilemma tightening around my chest. I would have to make the choice that could forever alter the course of our lives. With shadows closing in, the storm raging around us, I took a deep breath, prepared to carve my fate from the darkness. unknowing of the fractures it would leave behind. As I stood in that damp alley, holding the knife poised over my phone, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The rain pelted down, drowning out the world beyond, but all I could hear was the thundering of my heart, the echo of uncertain futures. The weight of that message crushed me. I had to choose between Emma's safety and my own. But what about Julian? Julian's presence burned fiercely beside me, his eyes alight with concern and determination, yet even in his determination, I could sense an undercurrent of dread. What if the choice was just as much about him? I turned my gaze back to the shimmering screen, blinking hard against the water streaming down my face, fighting to breathe. I can't lose her. I can't do this, I whispered, more to myself than Julian. Alina, listen to me, he said, voice steady but urgent. Each word was a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. Choosing means protecting everyone, not just you. We have to think about Emma, too. If they know where you are, they'll come for you. And if they get you, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air between us. I drew in a shaky breath, every fiber of my being proclaiming against the idea of abandoning Emma, that fierce spirit who had stood by me, who had found her way into my heart in ways I had taken for granted. But the shadows surrounding us grew thicker, their whispers edging ever closer. I suppressed the panic rising in my throat and steadied my hands, willing them to make the right choice. All I could feel was the coldness of that knife, a fierce reminder of the sacrifices facing us. Alina, Julian urged, his voice breaking the spell of paralysis wrapping around me. I need you to decide now. We can't lose you both. I blinked away a wave of tears, a raw pain seeping into my resolve. What if I can't? What if saving Emma means losing myself? Losing us? Julian stepped closer to me, his gaze piercing through the fear. You've already faced the darkness. You've become more than I ever imagined possible. You've got the power to fight through this. Just remember, whatever happens, you won't be alone. But if you stay, the shadows will consume you. His words resonated with a deep truth, igniting my courage, and I felt a stirring within me. Maybe letting Emma go was the only way to protect her. I thought of her spirit, her laughter, the way she always seemed to know when I needed her. And I would never forgive myself if I put her in jeopardy by clinging to the past, exposing her to the same darkness that had lured me in. I have to do it, don't I? I murmured, a shaky certainty building inside me. I can't let them find her. Not like this. The realization settled over me like the heavy rain. The path was laid before me, etched against the chaos. Julian nodded solemnly, a thread of sadness creeping into his expression, intertwining with a flicker of pride. Whatever happens, Alina, your bravery defines you, not the fear. With that, I pressed the blade against the phone screen, my heart racing. I could almost feel the weight of every decision I had made bleed together, the truth culminating in this moment. As I pressed down, the glass shattered violently beneath the pressure, fragmentation mirroring the turbulent turmoil within me. The warmth coursing through my veins as I felt the release of a decision made, glimmered against the backdrop of doubts swirling in the dark. Alina, Julian shouted as I shattered my connection to the outside world, the phone falling uselessly to the ground, its screen now depicting nothing but shattered remnants. The sound of sirens echoed through the rain, merging with the chaos wrapping around us. What did you do? He asked, a mix of urgency and disbelief layering his tone. I chose to save Emma, I replied, my voice resonating with a newfound strength. If they're coming for me, let them. They'll face the darkness, but not alone. Together we fight. But as the shadows began to close in around us, the raindrops mingling with my fears and resolve, I knew in my heart that this wasn't just about my survival. This decision would ignite a fierce battle, echoing vividly against the choices yet unmade. With Julian's hand holding mine, we plunged into the storm ahead, hearts pounding in sync with each step forward. As we emerged from the alley, a wave of uncertainty crashed down. Everything outside seemed suspended in time, caught in that tumultuous moment where choices collided and hearts waged war against shadows of the past. And just as we passed the threshold between light and dark, a voice thundered across the night. You think you can escape your past? Jonathan appeared, face twisted with malevolence, flanked by figures whose intentions radiated danger. I turned to Julian, sensing the battle rise above us, murmuring fiercely, "I will never let them take away our choice again." There was no returning to the shadows we once knew. We would forge a new path drenched in resilient light. In that moment, we forged ahead, grounded in the reality that love, courage, and the untamed spirit could pierce through even the darkest of nights. It would not be easy, but we would face it together, hearts unwavering, for the dawn was closer than we thought. And as the storm raged on around us, I discovered that sometimes the only way through the darkness is by stepping boldly into the light fueled by love, armed with hope, and unwavering in our resolve to fight for what we held dear. Together, I whispered fervently, the promise echoed in my heart, a vow bound to shape our future, tethered by the dawning light of our unbreakable bond.